Good evening, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to the New Bern Board of Aldermen June 28th meeting tonight. Prayer will be given by Alderman Barbara Best.
Good evening. Can we all please take a moment and join me with prayer? Heavenly Father, I come to you once again, thanking you for such a beautiful day, allowing us one more opportunity to get it right with you, Lord. And Lord, as we sit here tonight and conduct the business of this city, touch each and every one of us, touch our mind, touch our heart, so that we can make the best decisions. Give us the knowledge, the wisdom, and understanding so that we will conduct our business that will affect all of our citizens in a mighty way. Amen.
Amen. Would you join me in prayer and pledge allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Dingle.
Here.
Alderwoman Harris.
Present.
Alderman Astor.
Here.
Mayor Outlaw.
Here.
Alderman Kinsey. Alderman Best.
Present.
Alderman Odom.
Here.
First item is the consent agenda.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as is.
Second.
Have a motion, second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Motion carries. Let's go to item number 7.
Good evening, Mayor, Alderman. The next item on the agenda is an update on the Stanley White Recreation Center project. At this time, I'd like to ask Iowa Alderman and Ken Mayer to come up and make their presentation.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on the Stanley White Recreation Center project to this group. We want to accomplish a couple of things this evening. I'm going to very briefly sort of take you back to where we were in December and to give you the baseline of where we are today. And then Iowa is going to walk you through the 2 concepts we want to share with you today. So by formal introduction, I'm Ken Mayer. I'm a principal with the CPL Architects, Engineers, and Planners. Iowa Alabi is the principal architect of this project, and another colleague, Kay Smith, who is our construction cost estimator, is tied up in traffic at the moment. But she is en route and is here to be able to answer questions about this really interesting construction marketplace that I'm sure you're all hearing a lot about. So just to give us back into context, I was before this board back in early December. We had just completed, over the course of about a year and a half, a feasibility study and an environmental assessment process. And at the time, we were looking at a building with the layout that you see on the screen, roughly 31,000 square feet of space, 2 gyms. And at the meeting in December, a number of goals and ideas from this group were passed on to us. 2 big ones were the word resiliency was used quite a bit. And of course, there was a lot of focus on the $12.4 million construction budget that we were working in. And part of the resiliency piece was a reaction to some of the early concepts. And you'll see in what Maya was going to show you, we've gone quite a ways away from this and have focused quite a bit on some of the resilient aspects of the project, as you guys had asked. So we left that meeting with a direction to move forward, and I guess literally since the first week of January have been looking at the project. We worked with Mr. Hughes and his team on the operations piece of this, and with that, what I'm going to do is ask Maya to walk you through the 2 concepts that we're here to share tonight.
Thanks, Ken. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And to continue from where Ken left off, where we are is something we'll talk about in a moment, but I'd like to just talk about how we got to where we are today. So Ken has mentioned the feasibility study, what you saw before, and then we went into schematic design. And what you see on the screen is the building on the site with a pedestrian path through it, parking, and 2 courts, and some programming, of course, within the facility. And then looking more into the plan, it's 2 courts, and then it's an elevated track on the 2nd level, and a fitness sort of weight room, yoga studio also on that 2nd floor. 1st floor is your general kind of services, offices, multi-purpose space, reception area. And so with this scheme, we were estimated at $13.9 million because of today's market. So that's a jump in the per square foot cost, which used to be more around $325 per square foot. And that in today's market with supply chain, labor costs, and just the expense of a lot of materials, we're looking at $400 per square foot. And so what we did was to try and get back, of course, towards the $12.4 million that has been earmarked for this project so far. And so we have another option after looking first at just what we had for the elevations of that first option of $13.9 million. The materials are what we expect to be very cost efficient, precast, which is easily sort of installed compared to other materials that take a lot more time in terms of labor. And also just the thought that precast is something that can be manufactured in a controlled environment, brought to the site, quickly erected, and also is something that meets that resiliency request that has been made, given the kind of environmental conditions around New Bern. And so from this scheme, as I mentioned earlier, we moved to this option where the cost of this is estimated on bid date to be at $12.1 million. And you can see the cost reduction from the square foot reduction from 35,000 square feet to 28,000, almost 28,500 square feet. And also we are looking at just how to make spaces within this reduced square footage more hybrid, more multi-purpose, multi-use, and we bring the elevated track, which you saw in the first scheme on the 2nd floor, down to the 1st floor. So we don't have a 2nd floor in this option. Also, the weight room, the yoga studio that you saw on the 2nd floor is now sort of to the upper right-hand side of this layout. That's how we're trying to manage a reduced square footage, a reduced cost, while trying as hard as possible to retain the programming as much as we can. And the elevation there, we're still using the precast panels, but we've also been looking at brick or masonry as an option, or whether potentially a hybrid of the two can be accomplished. And so we're studying that. We're trying to keep abreast of the market to see what materials are as cheap as possible while still providing you the sort of long-term use, of course, and just sustainability of this very important building over time. So that's where we are, and would love to accommodate any questions you may have.
We appreciate your updating us, and you know, when we build a new water plant building, a new electric building, and 2 or 3 other ones around here, when they built City Hall, I don't think, because the cost went up, that we started backsliding. I mean, we know that for this long process that we've been through, and the emotional toll of the movement and everything else. I think this was kind of the reconciliation of sorts of what the original 35,000 square feet was. And I appreciate, again, the update. I don't think any of us, yourself included, are going to really know the absolute until we get to the bid process stage. And I'm just speaking for me, and I'm just trying to open this up for negotiate for deliberation, because I'm not speaking for the board. But I would like to stay the course and get some absolute numbers. I'm sure, I don't know what type of a contingency would be involved with a builder, et cetera. Had not much experience with some of the products you're talking about. In this kind of a humid environment, we all want to look down the road 20 and 30 years what this is going to look like. The precast is good. I think a certain amount of it is a good blend. I think if you put too much, it'll dominate the building, and it'll quasi-cheapen the aesthetic effect. So I wouldn't totally, myself, rule out a non-porous brick veneer, i.e. the city hall, that seems, other than the bonding mortar, to not, from a capillary effect of mildew and moisture and things like that. You mentioned the word resiliency. Well, I would like to see that resiliency be included in the 20-year, 30-year future maintenance and reserves for maintenance of the building. So I'm sorry costs have gone up. I was in one of my publications today, and they've gone up drastically. They're starting to come down a little bit. It's not going to be significant if we want this building built, and this building is past due to be built. So I don't know how long it would be from here, but if we were to proceed, I would say time is of the essence to get some good firm figures from whoever the final contractor is going to be, and let's see if we can live with it and go from there. That's just my thought.
Well, Mayor, I tend to agree. I'd like to see what the bids are. I need to understand something, though. The $400 a square foot that you're estimating, does that include, parking lot, landscaping, the footpath, all of that? So that it's not just $400 a square foot for the building, it's the total.
That's right.
Total site.
Yes.
Okay, so then it would concern me in decreasing it. It shows that if you go to the one story, you would eliminate the footpath. I guess that's what you're saying here. Pedestrian bike path design not included in one-story option.
Yes.
So that comes out of that, and to me, that's probably one of the most important features that we need to retain is the connection to Henderson Park and this facility. So that would concern me. And at this point, I agree. I hate the increase in costs. I don't like this. I believe we can still look and maybe value engineer something. Maybe we can do without some of the amenities on the inside for a time. But I think the footprint of this building needs to be the footprint of this building. I don't like spending money I don't have to spend, but I think we've debated this long enough and had enough turmoil about it. Before this ever gets built, I'm afraid we're going to be 6 years out from a storm, and that's been way too long. So I would like for both plans to be bid, and I'd like to see what comes back. I don't know if that's feasible or what, but is it not feasible? Okay.
It's not, because when they do their plans, their schematics.
They're going to be
and all
very
that.
detailed.
Yeah,
I understand.
very detailed,
Well,
so it's really one route or the other.
I'd rather roll the dice and let them do the full plan.
I agree.
This may be a really dumb question, but would we be opening up a can of worms if we went back to FEMA and said that the amount that they allowed us for this is no longer enough to cover what we had asked for?
Yes.
It was a fixed cost project, and we don't anticipate them coming back to the table.
Had to ask.
Yeah, that's true.
Is it within your consulting, or would this be the potential eventual builder would mitigate the retention pond. I know that the impervious surfaces of the prior buildings and asphalt concrete there, I'm not really familiar. How much land area, other than the impervious we already have, how much are we disturbing?
Can you go back, show us the overall footprint again?
Go back to the first one. Yeah, there you go.
Do you guys know offhand, because the portion to the left of the building, that's all pretty much impervious already, and I'm not trying to be an environmental steward of our city, but if you could use pervious surface improvements on the new construction end of it, and that we were waived on the left side with what is already existing impervious, could we not, I'm not trying to save a lot of money here, but for future use of green area, could we, the concrete's going to be 4-to-1, the price on pervious versus impervious. Have you guys looked at that? Is that, in other words, a cost-benefit ratio of the retention pond, which will do us no good, but if you did some green mitigated things, have you looked at that? I don't think we're going to save a lot of money, but I don't particularly, if you don't have to have one, and you can find ways to filter the silt, et cetera, without having one, that's just one more child liability. Let's leave it at that. Safety factor. You will have a lot of children around this project, and that would just be something, I don't know when that needs to be. You can mention that as we process this thing, that I'd like to spend 5 minutes with clean water and see if we can work something out on that.
So are you saying to alleviate some of
The retention ponds, the primary and secondary.
I agree, because the main purpose of getting this property was the fact that it was out of a flood zone, so I'm assuming it's gonna roll off, so it makes more sense to have it over where the Indigo senior apartments are and make more green space on the front property.
I mean, that seems a little excessive for, I see where you're kind of cascading that back down to the Henderson Park area. And I don't know if that's just artist rendering, or if that's going to be functional, but that seems pretty redundant for that size project.
So the closer we are to the right, the closer we are to the flood zone. So as that water sort of flows, you want to try and capture it as quickly as possible. That's why there are quite a number of them shown, even though we haven't detailed it out yet. Our site and civil engineers will be looking at it further. In terms of the parking and the perviousness of it, we have considered that, and part of what we're balancing with here is the permanence that you get from the harder surface, whether it's asphalt or concrete. And so when there's a heavy storm, we don't want that cost of having to restructure a parking lot if it's washed out through a heavy storm. So we will look at that in much more detail. We take what you're saying seriously.
Yeah, we definitely want to make sure that we're creating some sort of safe haven for Henderson Park, because it is lower. And I know that when we do upfit Henderson Park, we already have to put some backfill in there, because that washes away completely. So it would be, it makes sense to have some sort of, retention ponds along the way, but agreed with safety issues and things of that nature, and just taking up green space, could have some benches out there, people to eat, something set up like that in that manner. I don't think we need it on the front part of it. That's just my personal opinion.
I'm sure you're probably doing that to like a 10-year event or whatever, but I'll give you an example of what I'm trying to talk about. The parking lot across the street in Tryon Palace parking lot, for just what you're saying, you don't want to inundate other areas with that water. So I don't know what it's rated, but they have what I would call a nitrogen filled area versus a retention pond. It's an area to capture anything over whatever your rated year event is, a 10-year up to 40, whatever it might be. But that's, I'm just saying that from a safety standpoint. You're gonna have a lot of children playing around here.
Yes. Okay, we'll consider that again, thank you.
Just because we are live too, what is the safety mechanisms utilized around the retention ponds? Is it gating area or fencing? So,
Fence.
1, 2, 3, so there'd be 4 styles of fences going down the path to protect that no child can fall in or get caught up or anything?
Fencing, signage for sure, but the fencing could be sort of from natural materials. It doesn't have to be metal sort of fencing. There could be ways of structuring it so that doesn't to discourage coming close. Yeah.
I think you really need to think long and hard about that, if there's a way to put them on a backside or something, because we know children.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to splash, and you see water, and you think, hey, a little pool, and it only takes one time. I mean, you can drown in a foot of water. So
Yes.
we definitely don't want that to happen, and then it takes away, the idea is this flow of walking path and this beautiful connection to Henderson Park, and that families can go along here, and if it's, and not necessarily gated, if you shrub it or something like that, I think it's going to take away unless it's, you know, properly done. But I'm concerned about the safety as Alderman Harris is, and you know, this is built for children and families. We want to make sure that we keep everybody safe.
So the 2 large retention ponds that's on the actual site, they are not large enough to sustain. Is that why you wanting to put the additional 4 ponds in?
So we,
Is that like a sidewalk? No, this is parking running through here. If you would take out some of that, or that has to be considered in the plan, the extra parking right there, so that could be a larger retention pond on the site.
the parking is partially based on the size of the building
Okay.
and building use. The retention pond,
The 2 that's on that site.
yes,
So
just,
they're-
we could sort of look at how to balance it out further, but the part of this site plan is to just indicate that much is needed, you know, and how we spread it out is something we'll take further look at. The retention ponds are typically sort of also environmentally responsible, right? So we like to definitely have it be as safe, as you've mentioned, as possible, but it is kind of part of a BMP, a best management practice, that civil and landscape architects and designers use. So,
And
Well,
this is
we're just telling you what, we're telling you what the public wants. We're telling you what we've heard.
Yeah,
yes,
safety is number 1.
yes, we'll take another look at the balance and how much of it.
Man, we have retention ponds all over New Bern, and I'm sitting here trying to remember if any of them have a fence around them.
They're not legally, I'm not aware of a law that you legally have to have one unless the municipality wants to make one.
The issue is probably the grade to that retention pond. Make sure it's not something that the kid gets too close to it, he'll roll down the hill and into the water. But, you know, I don't know of a single retention pond in New Bern. I can't think of one now.
Yeah.
Maybe Lowe's.
Well, the one that
The best example of a retention
It's
pond
not
is at the
covered.
New Bern Aquatic Center. And the fencing was put around that because there's so many kids in that general area going to the aquatic center. And so
Well-
that's a great example of around a recreation
Well,
amenity.
my question is, does this price include a generation system?
Backup power, is that what?
Yes, generator.
So we have designed a generator for the project, and we have kind of a number outlined for that, but we're still discussing which purse that comes from.
Does it have to have
What-
one in order to require for the?
No, but it certainly would be nice.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
it makes
Yeah,
sense.
that's one of the biggest problems. I mean, you
There's
guys,
one designed for the project.
yeah. I mean, maybe Charlie can help us with that as well.
If you say it lasts only 2 hours,
Yeah, we're gonna definitely, when it comes to the generator, we're gonna have to look and see if we can get some grants for something like that. That'll be the preferred method, to go by, because, the price of the generator, I think you told me was about
About
150,000.
it's a 450 kW generator. Let's see, Kay, would you happen to have
Yes, it's 200,000.
200,000?
well,
I think at the very beginning of this project, I asked if you would provide us with the needs of a generator, that we would ask some of our people that we know for emergency management if they would provide funds for a generator. So if you can get that to Foster, we can start working on seeing if we can get a generator through emergency management, since it's going to be a shelter. And you did consult with the contact person that I provided about making sure that the building is built to qualify for a Red Cross shelter?
We have been in touch with the consultant, yeah, on that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just think it, looks back to the safety of it, the retention ponds. We understand environmental requirements, we rather be proactive than reactive. Although we probably never had a child, it would just be our luck that something like that happened. So if we just go ahead and figure out a way to take care of that safety measure before anything happens, I just think that would be important. And when it comes to the generator, I'm hoping that there's a higher standard than just 2 hours for a generator.
No, that's not what he said. Was it? You said it'll take 2 of them? Is that what you said? Oh, outage is 2 hours.
What?
I'm talking about during like a
During a
hurricane.
hurricane, we want coverage.
We get that standard 2 hours.
Terrible.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
I'm good.
Mr. Hughes, are you looking for some direction from the board on this?
Yes, sir, just let us know which direction you'd like for the architects to continue in, and they will do so.
Is the board in favor of moving forward with the design we have talked about? And then, now, give us the process, the procedure on this. When do we get the absolute figure where we see if we could live with the price or not?
So we've done a detailed estimate to get to this cost projection of $13.9 million. But it's not until contractors bid on the project that you will know for sure what it comes in.
I mean, in other words, like a contractor can't bid on something until he's got a set of plans and specs, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's what you're saying.
Well, yes, and what the market conditions are at that time. Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
okay, so what is the next step? When are we gonna put this out to bid?
December.
You have to draw the plans.
How much longer is it gonna take to actually have some solidified plans? Because we understand the severity of this, and the longer we take, something else is gonna happen. We're forecasting a recession pretty soon, so if we put the bid out and we're locked in on that number, then we can move to the next step. So what is the estimated date of actually being able to put this out to bid?
So talk about your process from right now, once direction is given, when you anticipate it going to bid.
So at this point, we are showing you these numbers because we're at the end of schematic design. We're going to need about a month and a half from when we are given notice to proceed with one of these options to move it to the end of design development phase. And we've got reviews and inspections with the city and with FEMA. And so some of that review period is not in our hands. But we will have information to them if we're released to go today on one of these options, July and part of August, and we will deliver this, let's say, by the end of August to the authorities having jurisdiction. And then whenever that review period is over, we will need about 2 months for the construction design phase, and we'll be just honing in on some very specific details at that point. And the way that we've got the schedule now is that if we hadn't had this bump in the road at the end of the schematic design phase, and we could have moved quicker into design development, we would have finished design development around the 21st, 22nd of July. So,
Which bump in the road are
Yeah,
you
that's
talking
what I'm
about?
trying to
in terms of the cost differences,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's understandable.
yeah.
So basically, we're saying 3 to 4 months total with review, and, you know, a bidder won't get it for 3 to 4 months, because if you're gonna take 45 days and then you've gotta send it off for review with FEMA, that could be another
Yeah, we
30
don't
to
know how
60
long that
days.
takes.
So we're talking 3 to 4 months then.
So we think around November,
To bid it.
December. We think we have right now on the schedule December bid date.
Well, I just want the board to understand that if you don't give some direction, that's your retention pond system. I
Yeah,
mean,
I think we have given direction. I think we've said to them, change the retention pond, but look at that. I feel like, did you hear that loud and clear?
well,
Okay.
But that's gonna hold up the process even more.
have you guys met with the clean water folks to kind of get a preliminary remediation, mitigation on that layout, or is that just your standard kind of what you've done 100 times before? I understand that those cascading little ponds are probably associated with the topo, the contour of the land going down. You can't just have a velocity of water coming. You probably have done that to kind of systematically slow the water. I understand all that. Same time, those green areas are areas that for future growth, as the city continues to have incremental growth, we will need future opportunities for recreation. And if we have it, as an example, the convention center, part of its retention pond area, you don't even know about, it's underground. It's to the left, it's between the building and the river, the bridge. So these are, you know how much trouble it was trying to find some land to do this anyway. So we have to smartly use what limited land we have there. So, you know, I don't want to, like, December, when the new board is doing this, you need to talk about this now and process this.
That's what I'm with you when you're right. That's how I feel. You know, I've been on this board when this happened. I won't be able to sit on this board when final decisions are made. I'm hoping the people that are currently on the board and the change in hands understand what the community wants, understands the severity of the situation, and we can move forward to let it bid out at whatever the price is at this point. I don't know if we need to, you know, if he has to come back and present us what it looks like with fixed retention plans, if we need to do a special call meeting or something, but I don't want it to hold up the process anymore to get it pushed through. And then the review process with FEMA again.
FEMA does have to approve the building plan, and that's part of the whole process with that. I don't think that anything with the retention ponds or stormwater management is going to hold this project up. The main thing we need to know is, do you want to continue with the initial design of the building, or do you want to look at the alternate that they presented? If you want to go with the initial design, they're going to continue on, and they'll get ready to go through their processes of working with development services and through FEMA, and then get ready to bid the project. In the meantime, they'll definitely be working on the stormwater issues, public works as well.
But will that impact the pricing?
The stormwater, I don't anticipate it would be that much with that.
Well, I make a motion that we move forward what we've previously voted on with this project. So that gives solidified direction that we would like to move forward with this plan and
With the 35,094 square feet.
correct.
Have a second to that motion?
Sabrina just seconded.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Any discussion?
I have a question. I'm looking at this chart on the back. It looks like the original design, the 2021, did not include a laundry room, but the smaller footprint does.
Yes.
What would be the reasoning behind that if the more updated plan was to be value engineered to bring the cost down? Why would you have a laundry room in that, but you didn't have it in the original plan?
One thing I will say to answer that is that they will have to include that. And in our discussions the other day, I don't know that they put it in the plan, but it would most likely go in the gym storage room, because the amenities that the original Stanley White Center had, we will have to include those in the new center.
So a kiln room?
That kiln room had not been used in many, many years. It was basically a storage room. It'd been a storage room for probably 8 or 10 years because the ceramics program had moved over to the West Newbern Recreation Center.
So the other thing I was looking for or looking at was the square foot by program. And there's not a lot of variances between these except for the gym. There's about 3,200 square foot difference in the two gymnasiums. So if we're going to have two gyms in the original plan and two gyms in the second plan, what are we sacrificing in square footage wise?
So there are, in the initial layout, we had 3 multi-purpose areas, or bays, I should say. And now we still have 3, but one of them is doubling as a yoga stretching area. So when you remove the yoga stretching area from the first layout, you bring it into the second layout, you're creating that multi-purpose, 1/3 of the multi-purpose area as a hybrid space for the yoga. And then we also get some square footage reduction by not having stairs and elevators throughout the building anymore.
Okay. I know my last comment, then we'll vote, I guess. We're looking at an additional $2 million, right? Which would be then $6 million more than the original plan. I know we want to move expeditiously, but as Alderwoman Harris just said, we don't know who's going to be on the next board. And I just hate leaving, we're leaving a $4 million debt for the next board. We're potentially leaving a $6 million debt for the next board. And we're doing that because we want to make a decision tonight. That's my only concern.
Well, how much are the ballpark on the architect fees?
The architect fees are soft cost. I think they're about just under $1 million on that. So,
Well, okay.
and if you want to talk about the debt service, Kim is prepared to talk about the debt service on where we currently stand, the debt from the general fund that is currently coming off within the next year as well, to give you a little bit better idea.
Well, I know that on the original cost and what we got back from FEMA was what, 8 million?
That's correct.
Round
Probably
numbers.
a little over $8 million. That's correct.
I mean, if we knew what was ahead of us when we started that process, if we indexed for that building in today's COVID-19 labor and materials, that would be substantially more, like over 10, I'm sure, versus 8. So we have to consider the index of where we are as a nation, state, as a city.
That's a true statement. So another question, and I'm naive about this stuff. So we get this back and we bid it out, and it's even more than what we said. Can we are we within the law to work with a low bidder or work with a bidder to value engineer, take this out, take that out to get the cost down? Or is what they bid what they bid?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can work
it's
with
very, very hard to materially change what we've put out.
I'm saying, could you work with the low bidder to say, okay, we wanted to, we need to get back to this number? And can you remove this, can you do that? How can you value engineer it?
I'd be curious to hear their experience. I've done that with minor adjustments, 12 grand here, 15,000 there. But to say, take $1 million off this project is now a different project that no one else had a chance to bid. That would, so you get to a point where it's just too material, the straight face. Is that?
Yes, that's right.
Again, I just wanted to ask the question.
Yeah, it's a good question.
I do have a motion and a second, and
Well,
we'll
we're
continue to talk as you
Still
want
under
to.
discussion, you got storage on this building. Oh, you have to replace everything that was physically in the building. So where one of these retention plans is, why can't we have an outside storage unit which would reduce the cost of what the building is doing? Because this is 1653 square feet. So if you don't have whatever this big storage is in the building and you put it outside, is there creative ways to do things like that to be able to bring down the cost?
I'll let the architect answer that.
So, if you are going to create a storage area that is resilient enough, solid walls, roof, and all that, it's more efficient to tie it to the larger footprint. It's going to cost more for it to be separate.
Okay.
Any other questions and comments? Let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle,
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Okay, motion carries. Let's go to item number 8. We appreciate your hard work on this.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for your time and
Keep
consideration.
in mind, I'm concerned about that water now.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Keep it safe.
Mayor, next item on the agenda is a presentation, public hearing, and consider a resolution approving the update to the land use plan. At this time, I'd like to ask Matt Shelley and Scott Lagur with Moffett Nickel to come up and make the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Alderman. Tonight we're presenting to you the new update for the land use plan for New Bern. This is a project that was started in October of last year, the kickoff meeting in January, and then meeting with the Zoning and Planning and Zoning Board in March, and then over the ensuing months was crafted to then, a few weeks ago, the Planning and Zoning Board has recommended approval of the plan. So tonight we'll have the consultant for Moffett and Nickel, Mr. Scott Lagur, to give you a presentation about the plan itself.
Great. Mr. Mayor, members of the board, good evening. Scott Lagur with Moffett and Nickel. Very nice to be in your community and show the results of our work over the last several months. I'll just sort of overall highlight some of the objectives of the plan and ultimately move to conclusions. But as Matt had mentioned, this is an effort that has been ongoing since October of last year. Really gained steam and speed in January and through the balance of the rest of the winter and into the spring and into today, moving through really 3 primary objectives. Number 1, to update your land use plan to certainly make sure that it's consistent with Chapter 160D and the state requirements for the preparation of these plans. And importantly, originally as scoped, it wasn't a full redo and remodel of every square foot of the city of New Bern and all the land uses. As scoped at the time in October, we were asked to really look and focus on those areas that have and continue to see significant growth, as measured by building permits, as measured by interest development, etc. And so, as you reviewed in your packet, the thrust of the plan is really looking at 3 key areas of acreage and corridors that we've called the focus areas as part of the plan. As mentioned, it's although it started in October, we've moved through 3 primary groupings of activities. And as you can imagine, the first is data collection and understanding and review of documents and components and all the great work that the community has been doing since the last major preparation of a land use plan, which was the regional land use plan of 2010. To draft some different concepts, some different future land use concepts, and analysis using GIS and other mapping to sort of look at things of suitability, look at where floods and hazards are, and we had the fortune of working on your resiliency plan that you adopted back in March, so certainly those are to the fore of some of the recommendations and policies in this document. And then finally, the development of the land use plan itself, focused primarily, as I mentioned, on those core zones, and bringing along with it components of the 2010 plan in case there are some gaps that are covered in our document that you sort of from A to Z are covered in terms of a land use plan moving forward. Just to, I'm not going to read through several of these, but just to sort of give you a quick list of many of the documents and the things that were reviewed as part of the plan and sort of were carried forward into and throughout our process. And of course, most important and kind of fundamental as part of this process was looking at the work that was done through the regional land use plan that you see here on your screen. And as I mentioned, this is an update, and it replaces the 2010 regional land use plan in its entirety. However, if there are elements that the 2010 plan is incorporated as part of this update by reference, in case there's some things that aren't included or there's some gaps. So as I mentioned, just to make sure that from A to Z, this document, if and as approved, gives you full coverage for the entirety of the city of New Bern moving forward. And as I said, we really looked at, as part of this planning effort, on 3 key focus areas. Even in the scoping back in October, early discussions, both in kickoff with staff and in discussions with the Planning and Zoning Board, these zones were crafted and identified based on all of the different stresses and decision making, and ultimately where the primary and principal development has been occurring in your community since 2010 and moving forward beyond this plan into the next 10 years. These areas, as we define them, the first one is shown in the orange, the MLK Boulevard focus area, which comprises about 6,600 acres and is area around the MLK Boulevard area and corridor, as well as US 70 and sort of property north and south of that area. The second shown in the blue is what we refer to as the NC 43 focus area, smaller than the first, the MLK Boulevard focus area. It's about 26 acres and encompasses the land around the NC 43 corridor and the interchange at US 17, and does move out to the New Bern ETJ, the extended territory jurisdiction. And then the final is certainly not contiguous with those first 2, down in the southern portion of the city, where you've had certainly lots of growth, and we call that the US 70 focus area. It's about 4,700 acres, encompassing the land in and around, and mostly to the west of the US 70 corridor. So those became the focus zones, and as we collected data, and as you saw as we reviewed all the different planning documentation and brought many of those components into the plan making, part of it was, of course, using GIS and other technologies, start to map suitability. Where are the utilities in the infrastructure? Where have the building permits been happening? What areas, for example, shown in the middle, are susceptible to flooding and storms, the 100-year storm and flood zones, etc. And even to the far right, starting to use different criteria to map out suitability of land development. What are those areas that, because of proximity to utilities out of the flood zones, sort of immediately, and there's lots of different ways we can slice the criteria, but these became sort of immediate guideposts to say, hey, these are another kind of data point to help in the decision-making process as to why you would validate, change, and update your future land use plan as it looks forward into the future. And so through that work, through that analysis, which occurred through the balance of the spring and into really the last month and a half, and as we presented to the Planning and Zoning Board, the core element and the core components of the land use plan are really twofold. There's the mapping, which you see on your screen, and this is the recommended 2022 generalized future land use plan. We work to try and keep it it's similar to the 2010 plan just for readability in terms of the types of land use designations, and also try not to be overly prescriptive to allow it to be flexible for this board and for your staff to be able to fully look and review development in a way and in accord with your community values and the things that are happening and the opportunities that come along in terms of commercial, residential, community building. We focused on really three primary categories. Those that are developed, which are shown in the gray, and many of these, when you sort of do a comparative of, from 2010 to now, 2022, a lot of these things have already happened over the course of 20 years. So things at that time that were considered urban transition that would be developed have already been now developed, and so it's sort of moved into that gray category where we're referring to it as developed land. There are always opportunities within those zones for urban infill, and you can see one area we've sort of highlighted a few zones that we call opportunity zones that because of transit accessibility, maybe they could have some additional density, they could have some small area planning, they could be focused with more granular type of development such as the mall that is right around in the circle at MLK, that becomes an area that's suitable for additional study. Even though it's within the developed land area, we do see continued focus happening in that zone. The second category, urban transition, that's shown, we'll call it in the goldenrod color. And those are the areas that we see development already happening, or the development we believe through our analysis is suitable moving forward over the next decade into the next time you do your land use plan update cycle. And then finally, those areas we've sort of agglomerated agriculture and open space into what we refer to as rural. And so this compiles all the remaining land, and that land that for various reasons is unsuitable for development or really is not, from our analysis, akin to, I think, the development pattern and the types of components and values that we're seeing move forward in the community. Many areas that are, for example, in the southern area that are green are part of the floodplain, and they're unsuitable for development. Similar to the very base of the MLK corridor at the bottom, you can see that large stretch of green area. Again, highly, lowlands, highly prone to flooding, generally unsuitable. There's some little pockets in there, but generally unsuitable for development. And that became sort of the mapping component associated with the work. And then the balance became reauthoring, rewriting, and bringing to the fore through staff recommendations, through review of your documents, all the other plans that I referenced, and then just some best practices, updating some of the goals, the policies, and ultimately the actions through which, when you consider development in these areas, you've got some guideposts to say, hey, are roads connecting? Are you supporting resiliency standards that are sort of already part of our work that you've done moving forward? Are we working to be more sustainable? Are we creating and incorporating our bike ped components appropriately? And we focused the goal and the policy writing really in four primary categories: those of land use, infrastructure, certainly making sure that infrastructure systems are approved and appropriate for the type of development, that it's suitably located and that it's managed accordingly. Environmental protection, clearly protecting open space and making sure and discouraging development where it shouldn't occur and encouraging where it makes the most sense. And then finally, economic development, making sure that businesses and industries are able to expand and diversify, and that we're creating a framework through which they can succeed moving forward. And there are probably, I should have counted them, There's about 80 different policies and action items that sort of, live below each one of those goals, and that ultimately we see will be instructive as development and opportunities are brought, again, to the fore in this community moving forward. So, some next steps, of course, through the work that we've done and as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Board, we hope you consider this work that was concluded in your package and consider it for adoption. We do realize, and even in discussions with staff and others, there are some additional little areas that might be useful to go under the hood again and to tweak and tailor, or even as we discuss some small areas or focus zones, and those might be reasonable follow-up items as well post possible adoption of the plan and moving forward. So thank you for this opportunity to present, and I'll be, of course,
Yes,
happy
sir.
to entertain questions.
Let me ask you a question. In your scope of work, do you engage the public, the citizens, about any of this in your collecting information?
Yeah.
Or did you work with just staff on it, or?
We did. We primarily worked with staff, but the Planning and Zoning Board meetings are publicly, they're meetings that are open to the public, and those were advertised appropriately and had opportunities for the public to participate, and of course tonight's public hearing.
So, I mean, a public meeting is a little different from just going out and talking with, particularly in their physical neighborhood, dynamic issues. You don't do that as part of your normal scope of work, doing these land use plans, do you?
We often do,
Okay.
really for not just land use, but for all types of master planning,
Right.
Based on the type and some of the issues that the
Right.
community is facing. We absolutely will do virtual and in-person meetings
Okay.
to try and develop a strong foundation for decision-making, and ultimately, getting good ideas.
I'm not asking you a leading question here, but I'm just going to ask you a question. Obviously, you do a lot of these, and either because of in-place capital improvements, i.e. drainage, stormwater, and other things, you probably go into some communities that, or you're lucky, or Farmer Brown 100 years ago when he and Farmer Jones were farming, they built a nice floodway, a nice canal, and in some areas of rapid growth, like a Crabtree Valley Mall area or something in Raleigh, maybe that didn't happen, and then you have these floods in areas that probably on a FEMA flood map would not flood.
Right.
So that's why I'm asking if you got some citizen input, because for what I heard you say about land use, it looks to me like your work is pretty much primarily based off FEMA maps, when in fact, because of, I don't know where I'd pin the tail on the donkey as far as poor planning, we have a lot of 14 to 16 foot elevation areas of New Bern that will flood under certain flood events. So I don't see that on the map, and I can show you some of those areas.
Sure.
Because you probably need a tandem 3 foot where you got a 3 foot culvert in place. So when you're doing your investigating, would you not want to know that?
Yeah, I mean, we would. Obviously, we'd like to know as much as possible.
Because I can tell you,
right?
I can use about 20 citizens to help you out with that real quick.
Sure. And remember, the generalized future land use plan, we're working at a very kind of a course level. And then as you move down into zoning and development approval, you're working down into much more granular analysis. And sometimes at the large generalized level, you may not have, or you'll make decisions, you'll say it's suitable in a general way to have that type of land use, but you have all of these other levers throughout the development approval process that are assessed, pulled, that maybe because of flooding or additional information or more detailed mapping, you go, you need to think, Mr. Developer, Mrs. Developer, a little bit differently about this particular parcel or site or configuration, or even as the previous, looking at the recreation facility as to exactly how stormwater is going to interact on the site.
I mean, I would just say if Jacksonville, North Carolina, and New Bern, North Carolina were identical, my land use plan would be totally different based on the sizing of drainage culverts and other things in Jacksonville versus New Bern. I would be making a totally different mapping of the two, so.
Yes.
But I think you just
I
go
hope
by
so.
flood maps is what I think you do.
I have a question. A lot of times we get asked, does New Bern have a strategic plan? And I kind of say, well, we've got a land use plan. Do you think that the two are comparable, or do you start with a land use plan and then go to different areas and make strategic plans? Because it is confusing to me, because this basically lays out what our strategy is for growth in the city of New Bern.
Right. So, I'm sure there's a by-the-book answer and there's a personal answer. I'll give you my personal answer, is that in the practice, the land use plan generally is a foundational piece. And I have found that then the next, again, kind of more granular level of small area plan, special use districts, historic districts. I do a lot of waterfront planning, so waterfront districts. That's where the rubber really can hit the road. Because you can have a very focused discussion and a conversation about, Mrs. Smith's front yard, or how the street works. And I feel, again, that's a personal opinion, that those are far more strategic, and with great staff and great champions for projects, far more implementable moving forward.
Did you get a lot of participation for these meetings?
Yes, both the staff and the planning and zoning board meetings were well attended, and the last one we had was a 4-hour discussion.
Okay.
Well, I mean, this is all good. I mean, it's great information. I'll give you an example. One area, New Bern, like it continues a development downstream, and then one downstream, and then one downstream, and you know what that does to the upstream ones. And it's so stressed in one area. I will not mention that one engineer was going to run water way down a logging canal. There's like 5 big timber companies that own this until it gets out to a major artery. And so I just asked a question, who's going to make sure that logging canal stays clear?
Right.
Because there's like 3 property owners. Well, nobody can answer that question. But they were sure fixing to put some water down there just so they could solve their problem, so they could get their development fixed. And that's the problem we have in New Bern. I don't mean to get on the holy pulpit or anything. It's just that I would certainly wouldn't mind seeing land use plans, some caveats, or some errata or some type of index of some key considerations and concerns that someone's going to have to answer these questions at some point. I mean, departmental review, the process, we come in, we're going to put 200 new units in, we're going to have a 10-year water event, primary, secondary, then it's anybody's guess where that water. I've actually been in one near Alderman Harris, her neighborhood, where instead of the water running out of her retention pond, it's coming in. It's coming in a storm event. So, but I would certainly put that in the back of the book for planning. Anybody else have any comments? Well, I just wanted to include that, so if anybody has any public comments, they can add to it. We will now open for a public hearing. If anybody wants to come from the public, come forward, make comments, ask questions, etc., you're free to come up. Now, there's the expert in the back there, Mr. Meadows. You're more than willing to come up and ask any questions, make any comments.
May I make a motion that we close the public hearing?
Second.
There's a motion and second. Does anybody have any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Motion carries.
Question, is there any, I mean, if we want more detail in it, is there anything to preclude us from adopting this and then putting more detail in it? That can still be the case.
That's the plan.
Okay, and then we can still, I had this question before, but it's not a part of the land use where some of our zoning stuff really we need to look at that because some needs to change, because we got that C4 and C3 thing that drove me crazy the last time.
Yeah, those will be definitional changes to the zones rather than a rezoning. But yes,
Okay.
and that is not this document.
And that's not this document, okay. Well, if that's the case, then Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt a resolution approving the CAMA land use plan update.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Beagle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 9.
Mayor, next item is consider a resolution ratifying the action to rename Hospital Drive as Ray Leggett Way. During a closed session at the June 14th meeting, the board took action to rename Hospital Drive as Ray Leggett Way. The action was requested by the Board of Commissioners for Carolina East Health System and the Board of Directors for Carolina East Medical Center to honor Mr. Leggett for his service as President and Chief Executive Officer of the Carolina East Health System.
Mayor, I'll just make a comment that I appreciate the board supporting this. At our last board meeting, we did present Mr. Leggett with a resolution, and also the hospital had a sign made up. The only issue is, I guess we use blue signs in the city for our street signs, and they had a green one made up. So he actually got to take that one home. Him and his wife were having some discussion on where they were actually going to hang that, but he was very humbled and appreciative of the gesture. So if there's no other questions, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution ratifying the action to rename Hospital Drive as Ray Leggett Way.
Second.
Motion second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Beagle.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 10.
Next item is consider a resolution approving the sale of 1703 Wilmington Street. After receiving an offer of $3,000 from Ashley Boyd, the board adopted a resolution on May 24th to initiate the upset bid process. The bid was advertised, but no upset bids were received. The vacant .09 acre parcel has a tax value of $6,000 and was acquired by the city in 2008. The bidder owns the adjacent property at 1705 Wilmington Street and is seeking to expand their green space.
Anybody has any questions? I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution approving the sale of 1703 Wilmington Street.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Beagle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 11.
Next item is consider a resolution approving the sale of 2200 Grace Avenue. After receiving an offer of $10,600 from Kenny Muse, the board adopted a resolution on May 24th to initiate the upset bid process. The bid was advertised, but no upset bids were received. The .22 acre vacant parcel has a tax value of $20,000 and was donated to the city in 1992.
I've got a question. Matt, it says here the bidder has spoken with staff and development services about his plans for the property. This property is located on the corner of Grace and 17 South. I mean, it's in a commercial corridor, whatever. I have concerns, right on the street, 17 and Grace. My concern is that 10,000 may not be enough to pay for this corner lot. I'm afraid they're gonna take it and sell it for $100,000 the way the property's gone. I don't know what their plans were for it. I mean, the way the corner lots are going in that commercial corridor, I wanna make sure we're doing the right thing. So that's my only question. Can you just educate us? And is he building his home there? Is he putting a business there?
So the property is a very sharp, acute triangular lot. So some of the development potential is limited just by that. Second, it's also, I believe, zoned residential there.
Okay,
So,
so it could not be commercial.
yes, not under current zoning.
That's fine. I was just curious, and I just wanted to make sure we're being aware of stuff. I know we have the 50%. That's the minimum, but we should make sure that we're maximizing what we're getting from our sales. So that was my.
Matt, that doesn't mean that he can't come back and ask for it to be
A zoning
changed.
change.
A zoning change, correct?
That's correct. Anyone can do that at any time.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other questions, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt a resolution approving the sale of 2200 Grace Avenue.
Second.
Motion and second, is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle?
Yes?
Alderwoman Harris?
Yes.
Alderman Astor?
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw?
Yes.
Alderman Best?
Yes.
Alderman Odom?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 12.
Next item is consider a resolution to initiate the upset bid process for 2107 Pearson Street. Davis McKinley Properties LLC made an offer to purchase this property for $3,750, which is 50% of the tax value. The vacant .23 acre parcel has a tax value of $7,500 and was acquired by the city and county in 2019 through tax foreclosure. Taxes, costs, interest, and penalties due at this time were $3,189.32 to the county and $1,651.74 to the city. If the property is sold for the initial bid, the county is estimated to receive $2,572.58, and the city will receive $1,177.42 from the proceeds. The city will also receive reimbursement for the cost to advertise the bid. The bidder has spoken with the staff and development services, and they are satisfied that the property is suitable for future plans.
There's no discussion. I'd like to, do we want to go ahead and bulk 12 and 13 together?
As long as it's unanimous.
No, I have something.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution to initiate the upset bid process for 2107 Pearson Street.
Second.
Motion and second, is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom?
Yes.
Alderman Best?
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw?
Yes.
Alderman Astor?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris?
Yes.
Alderman Bingle?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 13.
Next item is consider a resolution to initiate the upset bid process for 803 Pavy Avenue. Susan Barber made an offer to purchase this property for $2,000, which is 50% of the tax value. The vacant .09 acre parcel has a tax value of $4,000 and was acquired by the city and county in 2017 through tax foreclosure. Taxes, cost, interest, and penalties due at that time were $2,335.74 to the county and $1,956.01 to the city. If the property is sold for the initial bid, it's estimated that the county will receive $1,472.26, and the city will receive $527.74 from the proceeds. The city will also receive a reimbursement for the cost to advertise the bid. The property is in the boundaries of the Redevelopment Commission. Ms. Barber made a presentation before the commission at their May 11th meeting, and the commission unanimously approved a recommendation that the board initiate the upset bid process.
I'd like to, Mr. Scully, could you please come forward? I know that we shouldn't, it's a general practice that we don't ask what, someone is gonna put on a particular parcel, but since this is in the redevelopment commission boundaries, and I see that it was a discussion or whatever, what was the proposed plan for Ms. Barber, that she was gonna use it for parking or later on build a house there, or just?
Yes, I believe they may own the property next door, and so they're just using it for,
Parking?
parking or additional yard space. 'Cause
Okay.
as you know, there's not a lot of yard space in those properties there.
Well, if the redevelopment commission didn't have a problem with it and unanimously
That's right.
approved it, I don't have a problem with it, but I was just wondering. So if there's no other questions, Mayor?
Our board.
I'd like to make a motion to consider adopting a resolution to initiate the upset bid process for 803 Pavey Avenue.
Second.
Motion and second, is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 14.
Next item is to consider a resolution approving a lease agreement with Craven County for a portion of tax parcel ID 8-006-384 for use by George Street Senior Center. The city has previously leased to Craven County a portion of the property for the last several years. The most recent lease was approved in July of 2018 for a period of 2 years. That lease is now expired, and a new 10-year lease is proposed effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2032 at a rate of $1 per year. The property itself has a shelter that's located beside the senior center.
Alderman Odom.
Foster, just a couple questions. It says that we did the last lease in 18 for 2 years.
That's correct.
So what, wouldn't this have been actioned on in 20? Or did we just,
That might be a typo. It's currently in place, I think it runs till 2023, so we're actually doing it early.
okay, so my next question is, why are we doing a 10-year lease?
They actually reached out to us. Their goal was to extend that longer, the lease longer.
I'm sure it would be, but I mean, is that in the best interest of the city to extend the lease for $1 a year for 10 years? I mean,
They've got they've made improvements to the senior center proper, and that lease has been extended, and this is kind of an out parcel, the gazebo that goes with that. So their thinking was to keep the campus intact for the same period of time.
so do we own the other building?
Conveyed it to them a number of years ago.
Bless you.
So there is no more contract on the other building?
Exactly, yes. We
Okay,
sold.
that was confusing.
Yeah, we sold them the original piece, or gave it to them a number of years ago.
Yeah, I thought so. I remember that happening. So, but why wouldn't we have given them the property that's next to it? I mean,
We carved out the gazebo piece just because it's contiguous to the tennis courts and everything else. So we wanted to keep that and not sell it with the campus, just in case we ever needed it.
is there a precedent where we go? I mean, I know you're kind of a stickler about
Yeah.
not too long and
Yeah,
future
sure.
boards. So is there any precedent you could tell us about that makes it 10 years or normal? or-
Typically, we go that length of time when people make capital improvements. And I don't know, do they have some plans for this? Yeah, I'm not aware that they have any capital improvement plans for this little out parcel.
So the ground is ours, but the building is theirs?
The little gazebo, well, it's all ours.
I'm
They
saying
put
this
the improvements
agreement,
on
the-
that. It's just the small shelter
Mhm.
next
It's
to it.
not the main building that we like.
So what's the termination clause on this? I mean,
This one's 10 years.
if either party wanted to terminate it,
I don't recall there being a quick out on this one.
there's not a quick out.
So when I'm looking at this map, I just want to make sure, maybe I'm looking at this wrong, but there's a parcel 1, which is the actual center in
Right,
a parking
that's,
lot.
the county owns.
And then parcel 2 is the old baseball field, spray park.
Yeah.
That-
This is a little triangle that's cut out of that,
Okay,
just for the lease.
okay,
So it has very minimal use to the city.
okay. Well, that makes more sense because when I'm looking at this map, it appears like it's this whole parcel,
No,
which,
no, yes, it is not.
okay.
It's that little front section. You can see it right to the left of that doorway that is at the end. I know where you're talking about the gazebo. They have a little out picnic area there where people can picnic.
Is there any reason?
Is that the agenda?
Yeah, it's basically, it's in the agenda.
There's a map.
Between the tennis courts and the senior center on George Street side. It doesn't affect you see actually the old outfield fence is still there. When George Street had a baseball field there, of course, then it was converted to the splash pad years later. So it's just that small area. It's
A total of about 5,000 square feet, 500 square feet.
So Scott, if we're extending this out 10 years and it's not a hindrance or technically a benefit to the city, what's the procedure to just give them this sliver?
We can if we want. It's just one of those things you never know when it might be mission critical for a baseball field or something that the city might need.
Okay.
The senior center was a liability at the time because that building requires a great deal of maintenance.
Mhm.
So that one made a lot more sense. This, you just never know.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt a resolution approving a lease agreement with Craven County for a portion of tax parcel ID 8-006-384, which is just the little space, I want that in the minutes, with the, to the left, for use by George Street Senior Center, just to make sure.
Second.
Motion and second, is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Bingham.
Alderman Bingle,
Yes?
Alderwoman Harris,
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 15.
Next item is to consider a resolution approving a lease agreement with State Employees Credit Union for the ATM in the parking lot at 302 Craven Street. State Employees Credit Union has requested renewal of this annual lease agreement. In the city's parking lot, the ATM provides a needed service to those who live and work in the downtown area. The proposed lease term is for 12 months, beginning July 1st, 2022, at a rate of $225 a month.
How long has it been since that's gone up? How long has that price been at?
Forever. That's, I believe that, you know, I've asked about, do we bid this out? Do we give anybody else an opportunity to do it? I really don't think this should say that this provides a needed service for those who live and work in the downtown area, because it's more than that.
Yeah.
It provides for tourists and citizens, and originally, when it was built, the bank, who is the bank, Scott, that does this? It's not for citizens. It's
State employees?
State Employees Credit Union. They agreed not to charge fees, so it was a benefit and a, you know, bonus to be able to go there. But now they do charge fees. And $225, we get more from renting parking spaces in there than we would get from this. And this is okay, I'm glad we have an ATM, but now everybody's got an ATM, all the banks and what have you, where years ago they didn't. I'm okay with this, but I really think we should find a process of bidding it out or allowing others to potentially get in the game if they want to, and maybe we could get more rent.
I agree.
I mean, it's just for discussion, I don't know how the board feels about that.
I mean, at this point, we need to approve this, but I feel giving direction, it may be something that the next board needs to handle, because, I mean, if the original decision was not to charge fees, and then they've still been consistent with the $225, you know, inflation, we need to increase.
Yeah, we're increasing parking rates this year for our people, so.
Scott, if we don't renew this, is it just month to month?
It would be, yes, sir.
How many other areas that we have that's leased out like this? Do you know right offhand?
This would be the only ATM lease that I'm aware of. We have one at Fort Totten, but that's covered by a contract because the bank gave us that site years ago.
And we had to agree to have.
And we
first
agreed
citizens.
to allow them to keep an ATM there.
Well, that, based on what Alderman Odom said, I would say no to the lease and let it go month to month and then reevaluate. I mean,
Can we do that?
Table it and explore options.
I make a motion, we table item number 15 until the first meeting in September.
second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Motion carries. Item number 16.
Next item is consider a resolution accepting the American Rescue Plan earmark funds from North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. As we announced several months ago, the city was appropriated $230,000 in ARP funding. The funding will be used for the implementation of the Northwest Interceptor Rehabilitation Phase 2 project. To formally accept the grant, the city must adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a funding offer and acceptance form.
And Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, if there's no discussion, that we adopt a resolution accepting American Rescue Plan earmark funds for North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality.
Second?
Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 17.
Next item is to consider the final budget ordinance amendment for FY 21-22. At this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Ostrom to make her presentation.
This final budget ordinance is adopted annually to revise the current year's budget to ensure that all the projected expenditures have sufficient budget and to realize the revenues to equal the appropriations. It covers some salaries adjustments due to overtime. We have some contracted services, where we had, under unencumbered, line items, so we went ahead and reduced those areas. There was also some equipment that there were some balances on, so we reduced those. In the end, we also had, as a direct result of the deficit fund balances in the audit, we had to transfer, we have a transfer to the other funds for $2,782,388. And that consists of the 2017 roadway improvement project fund of $2,420,888. We had some fiscal year 2020 unfunded expenses for the city hall elevator project, and that was $261,500. And then we also transferred $100,000 for our annual OPEB liability with OPEB. So the result of those, we also had some revenue decreases and increases, and the net amount of all of this is about $2,357,858 from the fund balance for the general fund. We had a slight adjustment within the water fund. We also adjusted between divisions. We also had a slight adjustment in solid waste that was due to the GFL environmental contract increase. And then the redevelopment fund previously had approved the $25,000 for the search for the department head contract. Are there any specific questions?
Kim, let me ask you a question. Go back to the roadway fund again.
Sure.
How much was that? Was that 2.8 million?
The roadway improvement fund was, had a deficit of $2,420,828,000.
And that was in 2018?
So, that one had, previously had a deficit fund balance carried over. If you recall, in, our fiscal year 2021 audit that was just presented, there was several, project funds that had deficit fund balances that's not funded. So, when we did the research on that one, what we found was it was presented, through the years as having, revenue coming from debt proceeds, and yet we did not go out for, debt on that, so it was not a funded project.
Oh, so,
Cleaning this up to help us not
Sure.
see another finding and to close up some of these old project funds, that transfer has to be made from the general fund.
so on this roadway project, why wasn't the money encumbered when the project was let?
Why was the money not?
Encumbered? Why, I mean,
Well, it was, the expenditures were more than what the revenues were, so we just did not see additional funding as presented in the prior years to fund that project. So that fund
Sure.
Kim, I understand what you're saying. I'm not sure I understand how we got there because that project was not $2 million over budget. So did we just fail to go out and finance the project after the project was completed?
Yes,
So this action is taking the funds out of fund balance.
correct.
So why wouldn't we go out for debt service on it now?
I can look into that.
I know you're a finance person, you're gonna say because you have cash to pay for it now. I get that. That's what you all say who's ever sat in that chair. I get it, but, I mean, if we had intended on financing, I'm not sure why we would just pay for it now.
To get our books balanced, probably.
Can you finance?
That's the biggest concern, is we need to balance the books. It doesn't mean that we cannot go out, or I can seek that after we do this transfer. I can definitely look into that, but this is, we do have the funds available, and we also have, we're looking at borrowing in the near future as well for things, so,
Do you know roughly what $2 million percentage-wise does to our fund balance? Does it bring it from 45 to 40, or?
So when this is budget,
Right.
and when we talk about that going into that transfer, that is more or less, that's gonna be netted with what we have not spent, right? I cannot, right now we have encumbrances on the books that will not necessarily follow through the end of the year, but I don't know what that number is until we close out the books. So I don't think the actual transfer will be that much, the net amount.
Right.
But I cannot not put that budget in there.
I understand. My concern is we're getting into hurricane season, and I know Hurricane Florence was the worst storm we've ever had, but as healthy as our fund balance was when Hurricane Florence hit, we got below the threshold that LGC requires. So even though we have this money, I know it's easy to say, let's spend it. Interest rates aren't going down anytime soon, so that's my only comment.
And I do believe I believe our fund balance percentage is at about 50% at this point.
Kim,
We're pretty high in the last report.
just so we'll have an idea of what's coming in to us from FEMA.
I knew you was gonna ask, because I was gonna ask too.
What, do you have any idea what the balance of closeouts and how much, once we do the closeouts, we should be receiving from FEMA?
So right now, I can speak for our, I just want to take you back, on FY '21, our Florence project was 5.7, and then negative fund balance. We are projecting, as of today, that we'll probably have $3 million negative fund balance versus that 5.7. And it's really due to requesting the reimbursements timely, staying on top of them, and doing some project closeouts. We have several projects that are still in the process, and we cannot necessarily close them out. And what happens is the state withholds 25% of those expenditures, okay? They won't reimburse you that until they go through the closeout. I don't have a grand total of that, but, with me, but, that $3 million is where we are today with those. So it consists of that 25% and some of those, Cat Z projects that we have an appeal on.
So you're saying, I think I followed you, you're saying that with the closeouts that are ready to be submitted as today, there's close to $3 million. Is that what you're telling me?
With the closeout and some of those that we have,
Already.
like that Cat Z.
Already submitted. So we got a Cat A project that was submitted
In
in September the 2nd of 2021 for $1.1 million. And that was submitted already. So I followed up today with FEMA on trying to figure out when they're planning on giving us our $1.1 million. I mean, it was closed out in September. So, I mean, typically you would receive a check within 90 days. So I have not heard back, but if I don't hear back tomorrow, I'll call again, because that $1.1 million would be nice to have with this approaching hurricane season.
Yeah.
So I reckon the good news is that we do have quite a bit of money that, and Kim is, not this Kim, but the other Kim is working on closing out a lot of these projects and submitting them. The problem is just getting them,
Funded by the state.
getting the state to turn in their 25%. So,
And we have, I think it's 888,000 held up on that Cat Z appeal as well.
okay, yeah. Did you say Cat C?
Z.
It's Cat Z, yeah, which is quite a bit of money that we need to. That's what we pay for our administrative help in filling out all this paperwork and stuff, and it's based on, I think it's 5% of the total project. So we need to, the more of the closeouts we can do, the more Cat Z money we get as well.
And that's sitting at about 800,000. That tells you how much work it does to get this money.
So I just want to make it clear that, you know, Kim, thank you for finding this and cleaning it up for us. And this was no fault of the current finance director and her staff. And I appreciate the hard work of you guys in finding it and getting it cleaned up.
I agree with Alderman Astor. Thank
They are
you.
working hard.
Anybody else have any questions?
I don't reckon we have any choice but to approve it, do we?
Well, you know, for future forecasting, are we typically on a lot of these items, are we properly allowing for contingency factors that we're having these overruns, which are making us have to have budget amendments? And I know it varies according to what project it is, but are we putting aside enough of a contingency factor? Some things would be very minimal. Some things would be more. I know that on some of these projects, we have kind of, when the significant amount of expenditure is not going to be for 18 months, we're not just going over and borrowing $2 million. We're kind of playing it till we need it. And then I assume you're going and bundling 3 or 4 projects at one time and then going from LGC for reimbursement in a bundled package. Is that not what we're doing?
Yes, that's what we've done in the 2 loans in FY21.
So I assume when you get that $3 million in a bundle, you then go back in from an accounting procedure, you allot certain amounts of that $3 million to these projects to pay itself back. Is that what you do?
Yes. As we draw down the reimbursement funds, yes.
So, well, my question is this: if we had more contingencies involved in some of these projects here, would we be where we are? What do you think we should do different in the future from a forecasting standpoint, or a checks and balance of where we are in the project?
To answer that question, it's exactly what we're doing right now.
Just doing this?
Really yes, and we don't anticipate on having negative fund balances in the project funds. We're staying on top of that. However, in the hurricane funds, that unless we make a transfer to cover the hurricane funds, that will stay in the deficit. But we have had that finding for the hurricane funds, and it's not a new finding, it's a recurring finding, and it's justified with the fact that it is with the hurricane.
Well, thank you for straightening this out. I know from an audit standpoint, it'll look much better.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the final budget ordinance amendment for fiscal year 21-22.
Second.
Motion and second, is there discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris?
Yes.
Alderman Astor?
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw?
Yes.
Alderman Best?
Yes.
Alderman Odom?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 18.
Next item is discussion of ARP funds and to consider a motion to divide funds among the 6 wards. So at the May 24th meeting, there was considerable discussion about possibly divvying up the remainder of the funds that were left after the board allocated towards stormwater projects and the McCotter House project. The board did not vote on that yet, but you wanted to see what the breakdown was per ward. So Kim actually sent that information out to you, and that's also included in the package you have today. So at this time, we'll let Kim go through some of those projects and some additional information.
So as you just said, the May 24th board meeting, we wanted to see the allocation of $6,704,351 split between the 6 wards, which allotted $1,117,382 per ward. We had $2,350,000 that were already approved and allocated for the projects. And the McCotter House was split between, agreed to be split between 3 wards, Ward 1, Ward 2, and Ward 5. That project was $116,667 for each ward. So if we take a look at Ward 1, you have, Ward 1 has the McCotter House at $116,667, and then Hancock Street Colbert for $500,000. The total projects are estimated to be $616,667 with a balance of $500,725. Ward 2 had the $116,667 for the McCotter House. Red Robin and Trump Road Ditch for $230,000, and the Trump Road Bank stabilization for $270,000. Those projects totaled $616,667 with a balance of $500,725. Ward 3 has not yet allocated any projects. Ward 4 has allocated $100,000 for the Racetrack Road Holder, leaving a balance of $1,017,380. Ward 5 allocated their portion, $116,667 for the McCotter House, $400,000 for the Norfolk Southern Culvert, $500,000 for the East Rose Culvert, totaling $1,016,667 with a balance of $100,725. Ward 6 has not allocated any projects yet at this time. We have a total balance of $4,354,351. So so if you agree with what has been presented in front of you tonight, I ask that you, for a motion to divide the ARPA funds among the 6 wards, and then additionally discuss other projects that the board would like to possibly allocate and provide direction to the staff to seek pricing and then present in future board meetings.
To clarify the last part, once we approve this money, regardless of who's sitting on this board, once I allocate my money to the project, it's going to be done, correct?
It will unless it's changed, and that's why it's important that all of you allocate all of your monies.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So all we have to do is allocate it. The board cannot control what I do with the $500,000 that's left over, correct? As long as it's...
They could.
Unless
And
you
what we want to
appropriate
do is
it, unless you put it into
we want to
the fund.
create the peer pressure to allocate it all of it so that there's no thought
Right,
of changing it.
Right, so all of my funds are gonna be allocated. I just wanna make sure that the discussion, I don't have to come back to the board and say, hey, this is what I plan on doing with the money that was allocated.
No, well, maybe we're talking past each other. What I'm suggesting is no matter what you do, a future board can change what you do until the money's spent.
Oh, yeah, no, I know that.
Okay.
I'm saying the current board that we're sitting on,
Yes.
I don't have to come back to the next meeting and say, hey, I'm deciding to utilize this money to do this. As long as I work with staff and it's a project that can be done legally with the funds.
The board's got to approve it, yeah. The board's got to approve everyone's allocations. So each of you will make your allocations and then hopefully unanimously approve all of those allocations.
Okay, so maybe we're talking past each other. We're gonna do one motion to allocate to 6 different wards. After that motion is done, do I have to come back and ask for a motion
Yeah.
again to spend my money on
Yeah.
the project that is
Yes.
being allocated for?
All of you do.
Oh, my goodness.
So you have to come back and ask for $400 for your sidewalks,
Okay.
okay?
Yes, these are city funds, not Alderman funds.
No, I understand, but mine's already allocated. I mean, the $500,000 that I have, I was advised to, because of bidding and the price of increase, I need to leave it. But how long before the project can start so that I'm not lost
So
out?
go ahead and allocate it just like we're allocating all of this.
Exactly,
Perfect.
exactly.
Okay,
Because I'm gonna throw mine in there too.
okay.
All the best.
Well, yes, before we even get to that point of voting on this, I just want to say, we have $350,000 going to the McCarter House, and I must have had a memory lapse that night of the board meeting, because this is the redevelopment commission is a city commission. Okay, it stands alone, but it's a city commission. And I think all 6 wards, that money should have been equally split between all 6 wards to cover that McCarter House.
We did talk about it, though. We did.
I know we did,
We did
and
say
at
that
the
it was the
time-
3 wards, because we're the 3 bodies that sit on there, and that area is specifically in our wards.
Yeah, but
That
it's
was
still
the-
city property.
Well,
I mean,
all
it's
of
now the
this,
redevelopment commission, but that was just my take on that. I just think, well, moving forward, if there's something that pertains to the redevelopment commission and it encompasses the wards, I think all wards should equally, submit their share of whatever the project may be or whatever needs to be, funding needs to go to the McCarter House to, that project. And secondly, at that night that we discussed this Norfolk, this ARP funds, the Norfolk Southern Culvert I was told that was Derby Park. So I'm sitting here thinking Derby Park is in Ward 4. Then by contacting the different departments within the city and Kim as well, and we found out that, that was in Ward 5. Now, I don't want to consider that as a part of my allocating my funds tonight, because I don't know how we'll go about for as this project's concerned, if there's a dire need for this Norfolk Southern Culvert to get that $400,000. Hopefully, we'll be able to get it some other way, because what I wanted to do was to allocate my $500,000 that would be left to a project fund for stormwater for North Hills, 7th Street. That's where I want to start to do with my balance of $500,725. So I don't know how we're going to deal with that, Foster or whomever. How are you going to deal with this $400,000 Norfolk Southern Culvert?
So with the $400,000 project, the board previously voted to approve that. So Scott, what is your recommendation if they wanted to change that original allocation?
2 thoughts. You could simply change it, or you could think of stormwater in terms of the ward that it's serving versus where the specific structure might be located. So you might have a stormwater improvement that perfectly serves a part of your ward, but the culvert sits in someone else's ward. So I would think of it more as what ward is benefiting from the infrastructure as to where it's actually sitting.
4 and 5,
If
Ward
that
4
helps.
and 5,
Yeah,
yes.
and if it's helping both, then maybe you split the cost
Yeah.
in some fair-minded way.
Yeah, because when I asked that question the night of the meeting, where was this Norfolk Southern Coal Road? And I was told by staff that it was Derby Park. So to me, Derby Park is Ward 4. However, I guess Alderman Kinsey and I can discuss this.
Well, he's not here tonight.
I know,
And
exactly.
the next meeting is in July. For me, I'm not gonna be on this board, and I need my funds allocated, so if that's something we can do separately, then that's fine. I respect that there needs to be a conversation. Is it possible that individuals can be approved, you know?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
you can piecemeal it all you want, as
Okay,
long as the
perfect.
board adopts the motion.
Okay.
So I reckon the first thing we need to do is we need to decide and make a motion that it would be divided among the 6 wards minus the allocations that's already been requested, correct?
Well, that's the question, if you want to.
I think we're really confused. This is
Yeah.
so confusing. I think what had happened, we've said a lot of things. So when we originally had ARPA funds, we were very specific and
Right.
very definite that we wanted $2 million to go to stormwater. We said that off the top before we even talked about dividing money.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess and then the $350,000 to the redevelopment commission. We then came back and said, okay, let's divide 6 wards.
Mhm.
And we'll take the $2 million off the top. So I thought the $2 million was gonna come off the top of the 6.
Okay.
Then we were
No.
gonna take the remaining balance, divide that amongst the 6 wards.
Right.
I think that might be helpful.
Yes, ma'am.
And then take away the 3 of us dividing up McCotter House. I think that might make it, this is confusing. It was confusing to me because I don't remember talking about a Hancock Street culvert. I didn't even know that was being done, but it was part of the whole stormwater that we agreed to $2 million. Stormwater is gonna help all our city. But I just think it would make it cleaner and easier. I don't know if we took that off the top. We did vote for that. We did agree to spend $2 million for stormwater and then divide it. I think it might make it clearer to all of us and easier for us to understand, maybe.
Is my balance still gonna be $500,000?
No,
So,
It will be more.
It'll be less?
Less.
it's gonna be less, the way they're talking about doing it. I mean,
No, how would it be?
the
Because
It might be more, you need to figure out what the number is before you start arguing about it.
I know.
That's just my opinion.
so that night, that was discussed, and then, I think Alderman Odom had recommended that
And it voted.
split those between the wards, and that's what you guys had decided.
Right, but I thought that was after you pulled the $2 million out, so I
No.
was
He said, put it all together, separate it, indicate who needs what, and then we split the 3 against the 3 wards. At the end of the day, okay, we can sit here and nitpick all these dollars. The only concern we have that Alderman Best brought up is the one between Ward 4 and Ward 5. That's personally what I'm concerned about. If we want to put that aside on that, we can, but go ahead.
I think we're kind of got sidetracked, because really tonight, those projects have been approved, so they can come back at the next board meeting and make that adjustment. Correct me if I'm wrong, what we're really doing is approving the allocation for 6 wards,
Perfect.
Well,
right?
it's a bit circular, because
Okay.
what they're asking is that before or after the $2 million that's already been allocated. And I think, my recollection was, it was the full amount
Correct.
divided by 6.
Correct.
Right,
With the RCS divided by 3.
Correct.
correct.
So,
And there's plenty
So what
of
everybody's-
correspondence on that.
Yes, so what
from
everyone
Kim.
needs to
Yes, sir.
see is everyone needs to see their ward with the debits of the $2 million as to where they fall. And I
right.
think you've done that, with an exception of 4 and 5, and how
A
that stormwater
miscommunication,
might play
correct.
out.
So, I would like to make a motion that we adopt the ARP funds that are listed on this beautiful chart to be divvied up between the 6 wards. That's my motion.
Second.
Can I amend?
No.
We have a motion, second, discussion.
Well, the discussion is, I think the motion should include removing the 400,000 till we can figure that out? I mean, do we need to state that in this, or does it
No, because it
stick
can
like
always
that,
be
you can come back and
and
adjust it?
yes.
It would be easier for us to just,
What I would suggest is, once you divide it up, then the two aldermen one can give 300, one can give 400. They can horse trade among themselves within their own budgets.
Correct.
okay. So this is just setting up budgets in each ward?
Yes.
Okay, I'm okay with it.
Any
Roll
other
call.
discussion?
Yes, I'm a little bit, so, Scott, the statement you just made, so you're saying to me that the $400,000 would have to be divided between me and Alderman Kinsey?
You two would discuss that project and allocate that cost between the two of you based on the stormwater area that is served by that infrastructure. For
Okay,
example, if 90% of that is serving another ward, what you're saying is, I don't want to pay half of that when only 10% of that infrastructure helps my ward.
So, see, that is unclear to me because Alderman Kinsey may not agree to that.
Right, so what I was just about to say is, I'm gonna amend my motion to say, like Alderman Bingle said, that we need to remove the $400,000 so that they can discuss, because if technically we know politics, we can
I
vote tonight, you
understand.
can come back and say, no, we voted it, and then she doesn't have an opportunity. So I would like to amend that we approve this funding minus the $400,000 that needs to be further discussed between Alderman Best and Kinsey.
So where does the $400,000 go until we decide that?
Garage.
Where'd it come out of?
In-
Coming out of
CAMA
Ward
Ward 5.
Then it goes back in hers, I would think.
But then we're not balanced.
But now we've got an approved project that the board approved and no way to pay for it. Right?
Yes.
The second, did you agree to the,
No, somebody has to
Amended.
second the
Hmm?
amendment. Well, because I'm a bookkeeper, you can't, the numbers have to balance, so there's no way to do that. Now, you could have removed it, but we'd have 400,000 left in that. You would just decrease the 6,704 to 6,304, correct?
If you would move it off the
Can-
top, I think everybody's.
Can I make a suggestion?
Okay.
I didn't, you amended your motion, and I had the second on it, and I didn't do anything, so I don't know where we stand with that. Can we as a board agree that $2 million of this money should be spent for stormwater regardless of what ward it comes out of?
Amen.
Okay? Can we take the $1,117,392 per ward, to put all those together for the 6.7 million? Let's go back to 4.7 million and divide the 4.7 million up and let staff rank it non-politically on which stormwater projects need to be done and use the $2 million for that. Can we agree to that?
Well, you've got 2 million in stormwater there anyway. Because if you look, you added up 500 for Hancock, you got 500 in Ward 2, that's $1 million. You got 900 and then 100,000 in Ward 4, so there's your $2 million. So they just took the $2 million and divided it up.
Is it 2 million exactly?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So
So
your
can
2
we,
million is there, they just took it and applied it to the different wards. And
Okay.
again, I thought we were just gonna.
so what if we
Can we
just split
agree
it
to
in
that?
half now?
So that was Sabrina's earlier thought, just
So can we agree to that?
Yeah, just subtract it out
And
and
then
then
divide by
divide the
6.
4.7 by the 6 wards, and then you're still gonna have your money.
So Bobby, it's me and you that sacrifice.
Yeah, we're paying, and I mean, I've got mine pretty much, I'm fighting right now for the project that I've got, is to have enough money to do it.
I understand where you're coming from, I really do.
I'm trying to find a resolution. is all I'm
No,
trying to
so my resolution is, why can't we just go ahead and split 200,000 now, and then you guys have to figure it out? Can we do that? I mean, unfortunately, he's not here, but at the end of the day, other people's projects are gonna get held up because of technicalities that were already approved.
Does staff know how much of that?
that's my question.
Kim, can you give us an idea, if we took that 2 million off the top, what the actual amount would be per ward?
per ward, it would be 784,000.
So So in regards to the Norfolk Southern Culvert project, staff has not done any work on that yet. They have started some of the design work and reaching out to consultants for the other projects. So if the board did want to table that project, we could certainly do that.
So, I mean, just take the $400,000 that's been subtracted out of Ward 5, put it back in her total, and then let them make the decision.
Right.
I'm good with that.
Huh?
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'm
Just
good
give
with
it back
that,
to her and just scratch that project until Barbara and.
That would be the easiest way.
All right,
Let's just scratch that out. I'm good with that.
I'm gonna pull all of my
And
motions
so
back.
her number becomes, 500.
So I'm gonna go ahead and amend my motions, that we go ahead and allocate the funds for each ward, minusing the 400 that's here, but putting it back into her allocation, so it will equal 500, it equals $600,725.
Second.
No, it would be,
500.
I can't,
500.
400, yeah, $500,000, 725.
Second.
Yeah, let's have Alderman Odom second that amendment, since he
Thank
seconded
you.
your original.
Thank you.
Okay, you now have an amended motion in second, or a new motion in second, I'm not sure which, but, discussion, comments? Vote? Let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Can we get a
Okay.
round of applause, please?
So now how do we do our projects to put money on the books?
However you would like. You start one by one, and whatever you got, you can do.
For right now, if you want to start with me, I need to go ahead and get the crosswalk at Middle and Broad Street.
Make your motion. This is a
I'd like to
motion.
make a,
Hold on
Oh,
one
I
second.
see
So
a finger.
as we're going down the list, some of these projects, I've talked to some of you about them, and staff has not vetted some of the prices yet. So on some of those, we'll come back on the next meeting. That way we can make sure we're accurate on the pricing. On the project you're getting ready to talk about, $130,000.
Okay. So I would like.
Can I ask you
like-
something before you do that?
Yes.
You said a crosswalk, is that, how much, do we have an idea how much a crosswalk is versus a full signalized stoplight?
I was told it was like $200,000 or more for that, but I certainly would have the money to fund that.
So if somebody else on the board wanted to help fund that, instead of having a $100,000 crosswalk, if we could put a $200,000 signalized intersection there, that's the best decision, in my opinion.
I don't disagree with you, because that's been, then we've got some traffic issues that we're gonna have to, they took it away, the traffic engineers took it away for a reason. Then you're gonna have a light at Hancock, a light at Middle, a light at Craven, and then a light at East Front, so you have 4 traffic lights coming through downtown. I mean, that's, I understand it, and that's the heart, that intersection there. Just go and sit at the Chelsea one night, have dinner and watch. It is terrible. I can't believe how people speed down that road and don't pay attention to people trying to cross the street. It's pretty
Oh,
interesting.
please, like, please. I agree.
I agree. What?
Forgive me, Mayor, members of the board.
Maybe we should,
Because we don't have pricing on everything,
we should not.
would it be easier for you, this is a question, be easier for you to stick with the current process, and at the next meeting,
Okay?
you will have everything in a chart, in writing, it balances, all of your splits and horse trading can be accommodated with lights, and that way the math all adds up and we're not making it
So I
live.
guess maybe you just want some, I want to do something with the crosswalk at Middle and Pollock,
Yeah.
bring back to me the best use of my money. She would like to do sidewalks in Pembroke.
Well, I'm gonna make my motion. I'm making a motion. I know where all my money's going.
You
Okay.
don't know the price.
No, but can I make a motion?
Different prices.
But I'm gonna make my motion that the funds that I have available will go to that project, and anything left over needs to go to the redevelopment commission. So if that's $2, that's what they're gonna get. But I want all my funds allocated that way.
Up to the amount. Yeah.
Okay, so let's-
Up to her allotted. So you currently have $500,725, and allocated up to $500,000, $500 $7,725 towards sidewalk improvements in the Pembroke community.
And
Anything remaining, if there are any funds remaining, you would like to allocate those to the redevelopment commission.
correct.
Second.
Motion and second, is there discussion? You want a roll call, or
Yes, please.
let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle,
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes,
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just gonna sit back and relax, and I'll be here to vote.
Anything
Thank
else?
you for,
Anything else on this item? Anybody
Yeah.
else want to do any of this? Yes.
I want to give you my list. I sent it to Foster, but Alderman-elect Bob Brinson and I met and discussed some projects. We don't have all of our money allocated, but I want to tell you the ones that we do. So we would like the cemetery shelter installed at New Bern Memorial Cemetery. There were some infrastructure improvements at Union Point Park for some electrical services, some drainage that did not, I don't think, wholly got funded in this year's budget. We would like to do that, and I would also like to maybe see, obviously, Elephant in the Room, Union Point Park. I think everybody got, well, most everybody got the message that we're not moving forward with any development. So just to be clear with that, you said that there were some potential improvements to Union Point Park with playground equipment, some other things. If you're going to give us a list at our next meeting of some of those a la carte options, we would like to see that. So we could maybe invest even more in that to hopefully get the message out there that we're not developing Union Point Park. Filling the gaps of sidewalks that are already currently installed in Ward 6. So one example would be, you've got the new Harris Teeter Shopping Center, you've got across the street from that, you have Print-elect. In between that, there's a gap. So we would like to fill those gaps in the Ward 6 area. Bob, I didn't hear back from you, so I'm assuming this one's okay, but the neighborhood signs that we see at the entrance of many neighborhoods throughout the city, I think it's like a sandblasted type sign. Any of those in Ward 6, we'd like to see those improved or replaced if they need to be. And
on that one, Jeff,
Yeah.
wasn't that already supposed to be something that we were doing with those signs, those neighborhood signs, or is these different signs?
That is on a case-by-case basis as we have issues with signs.
Okay,
What he's looking at is across the board inspecting those signs, if one needs to be replaced, replace them or update the paint, so.
okay.
And I believe that should still leave us with a considerable amount of money that we would work with the other aldermen to see what we could fund citywide.
Is that your motion?
Sure.
Second,
Motion is second. Let's have a,
You got numbers? You know that?
We don't have numbers, we're gonna have to
Okay,
put
so
numbers
that
to
would be
that, so we'll be
direction
bringing
rather
that back, yeah, we've got direction,
Yeah.
we'll
That's
bring that back to the next
direction,
meeting.
let's have a roll call.
well, I want to go ahead,
Bacon?
I want to go ahead too.
Well, that could be,
No.
before you go, that could be a voice vote, since we're just giving direction.
right,
Okay, I
Alderman-
thought we wanted a roll call on the
Alderman-
last one. I figured you want one on this.
no,
Yes,
because
sir.
I allocated all my funds.
Yeah, he's just giving direction, she allocated.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Well, I want to allocate my $500,725 to set up a project fund for stormwater for North Hills Simmons Street.
But you can't
Does that
typically
include
do that
the-
until you discuss what's going on with the $400,000.
Right.
So really, you have to wait to do anything.
Why would I have to wait?
Because you have to,
We made the motion, the money went back into my project fund.
yeah, but
Alderman Astor,
the project was already approved, and they started the process, and we discussed that you were going to get.
I know that, but we just voted about $400 being subtracted and put back into my,
I know, but you may have to spend some of that.
Exactly.
You may have to spend some of that towards the other, so they're saying, don't spend all of it in there. I think what you should do is I would like to make a suggestion that you make the motion to set up the project fund for that very project of stormwater, with any funds that you have remaining to go in there. I mean, that
I
would be
want
the
all of the
safest.
money to go to stormwater because it's gonna surpass this little bit of money we're speaking here.
Understood, but what if you have to take out 100,000 to go towards that project, that
I
other
said
project?
500,000,
Okay,
$725.
So the Norfolk Southern Culvert was already voted on by the board. So it was already allocated to you on $400,000. There was discussion between you and Kim and staff in regards to which ward it needed to be allocated to. So we as a board agreed, because Kinsey is not here to speak for himself, that we're gonna remove it and put it back in your pot. But you technically can't technically can't make a motion to spend the 400,000 because you were gonna speak to him about how it was
I
supposed to be
give
divvied up.
directions, Mr. Hughes, I give directions if that's where I want my money to be spent on that project. Is that acceptable, Scott?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you.
Did we actually vote on that? Did we vote for her to spend that money for that project? Or was it just some suggestions on where to put some of the money? Or don't you know off the top of your head?
I'd have to check. I'm not sure that it was a vote.
I don't think
we
it
all
was.
agreed to spend the $2 million on stormwater projects. We all agreed on that. I think we voted or gave direction on that. Then when we had this robust discussion back and forth about how we're gonna divvy this money up, that's when I made the suggestion that we split it up the way we do and the projects in that particular award go to that, and I think it passed unanimously.
And you are correct, Alderman Odom. And the problem here lies is the night that this was discussed, I asked about the the Norfolk Southern, and I was told by staff that it was in Derby Park, which was consistent to me as Ward 4. So you're right, we did vote on it, and that's where the misunderstanding come in at, about Derby Park. But that's how it stands with me. I just give direction is I want whatever monies is left to go into a project fund for stormwater for North Hills and 7th Street.
So does that leave me?
Yes.
I'm so confused. I cannot give you direction as to where I want to spend my funds now because the police department and fire department and I are having some discussion. We don't know exactly what we're going to do yet. The only thing I know for sure is that I would like, and I still don't have the prices for it. I've asked Public Works Director to give them to me to buy 4 of these electronic speed limit signs that will be placed in the Evans Mill section of Old Airport Road and some on Old Airport Road, just to try to keep traffic slowed down. So I'm kind of waiting on the price of those as well.
I'd be curious to know what those are when you get them.
Alderman Ashford, I think Mr. Williams has the price for that.
Oh, yes, sir. I believe we had. Six.
so, we are working with Urban Design Ventures. That is the consultant that's working with the Housing Authority on this. We had a meeting with HUD on April 28th to discuss the process. There was a lot of consideration given to, it's not just HUD that we're dealing with, it's FEMA that we're dealing with as well. And so, the comments were made multiple times over that conversation. We need to have all the parties involved in one call at the same time, because HUD will tell you one thing, FEMA will tell you something completely different. At the end of the day, FEMA are the ones that are providing the funds for this project. So we had a longer list of things that our consultant gave back to the Housing Authority. There was also an MOU that the city is going to have to enter into with SHPO as part of this process. SHPO, I got an update earlier today that SHPO has rejected the current MO because the Housing Authority does not have enough detail on what they're going to do with the Trent Court property. So the ball is in the Housing Authority's court. The Housing Authority is working to come up with a plan to figure out exactly what they're going to do on that development. That's a key thing. They've got to figure it out. City can't do it for them. They're going to have to figure those things out. So as of right now, things are at a standstill until the Housing Authority and their consultants can figure out what their overall plans are going to be, and then the process can continue to move forward.
So what's the C&I plan? I thought that was part of that.
The SHPO and even HUD and FEMA, they're looking for more detailed plans. A great example, Stanley White Recreation Center. We couldn't just give them something on a sheet of paper drawn out. They needed to see details, and so that's what the Housing Authority is trying to work through.
So it took them 3 years to get where we are now, so maybe it won't take that long.
You know, we've done some things back and forth. I'm going to be radical here right now. Just say we need to expand the board again, to get more members on here. Maybe they need more board help. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure.
It seems like it might need to be a reduction. Two things. There is an issue with the YT. I just received a message that it's some issue with part of here. Two, I would also like to point out for the record that when I voted no for us to come together, they didn't have a plan. So they still don't have a plan, and now we're partners with them, and now that's work that our staff has to pull their hair out to deal with FEMA and HUD. We should have gotten to a point where they did have a detailed plan, because now this is another situation where a community will need housing, market, everything that the plan is, that is going to be a long process. So
The best thing would be is, Foster, you still using Tiffany Ashby, who is the director. I think the best thing might be that we have a meeting and either, bring a few of the aldermen or we're here to our meeting and see if we can figure out what's going on. But I think we need to get some answers from her where she's at. I regularly attend the meetings. I was at the meeting. But we're not there yet. So,
do we have the ability to pull back from what we
I
planned?
guess we can. We can walk away from an MOU at any time.
Well, we can, my fear is that's going to further delay the time of our expenses. It's all their expense.
But who had to sit on the phone and have a conversation with FEMA and HUD? We still have to sit in on those meetings, our staff. I get what you're saying, but I'm also saying at the end of the day, we took on something and they didn't have a plan. They don't have a plan. They could be 12 years without a plan with these buildings. And we encumbered this situation because of Hurricane Florence. And, I understand that we're taking,
Nobody wants the buildings to come down.
Right.
They want
We-
that
right.
It's not a whole site, but do they want a whole site plan or just a site plan for where the buildings have been damaged?
They're wanting to know what they're going to do with the Trent Court property.
Total property,
Total
the
property.
demolished buildings plus the buildings that are intact.
So what would expanding the board do?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just pulling at straws, to be honest with you. Just more bodies to maybe be more proactive for the director. I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking, honestly.
Well, if a spot opens up,
So the
I don't got
bottom
no
line,
problem.
Mayor,
I being a pit bull on the board to get something done, because this is ridiculous, man, at the end of the day.
Can't we just do it ourselves?
No.
I mean, the way that you would do it yourself is, this has been the conversation and been talks would be, this is not anything that I'm coming up with, I'm just saying in general, there is this option, because we've talked about this before, is you actually dismantling the housing authority and putting it under the city. That's a feasible option, legal option that you can do. Am I saying to do that? No, but that is an option, and if it is under us, we have more of the ability to make things happen the way that it needs to be done. But I'm just putting that out there as a legal, am I correct? We
Yes,
have that
ma'am.
ability as a board?
Yes, ma'am.
And then a board can come back and also redo a housing authority with the mayor being able to the only one to appoint, just giving out the rules and regulations, not putting anything out there.
Learn that
Thank
statute
you,
well.
right, well,
I've been singing the song
So,
for
Yes.
so, Attorney Davis, the bottom line right now is that we as a city can't do anything because it's left up to HUD right now. Because you
Yes.
got to have that comprehensive plan, correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay.
On a much, much lighter note, I know she's not watching this, but I want to wish my wife a happy anniversary. Tomorrow will be 20 years.
Oh, congratulations. Brownie points.
That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, Alderman Best.
Oh, yes, I just wanted to thank, Sound Rivers for that, trout trash project. I see that one of those, traps have been, installed over at the Duffield Canal, and I can see the trash that it's actually, collecting. And I just want to say that, I'm quite sure a lot of you are aware that Pastor Johnson, Robert Johnson, has lost his brother. He passed away last Friday. So my heartfelt sympathy went out to him and his family and to all that know and love Pastor Johnson. I had one other item. I just want to know if Foster, if this is something that you or Kim or our grant writer, is there, because we have, there's a lot of state ARP monies, grant monies out there, and I just want to know what grants have we as a city applied for? Is that something that you can get that information?
We're more than happy to provide the board with a list of the grants. I
Okay.
can tell you right now, and Kim Oster can do it as well, on average, we're dealing with about 50 grants at any one time. Staff is applying for grants on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, I think I signed off on 2 grants today, so we are very busy with that. All department staff are looking for grants on a regular basis. We're working with Margaret to write some of those as well, so.
Well, I'm specifically speaking of the ARP, state ARP funding through the, it was like what, $1.9 trillion? And there's a lot of grants that would really help us. So if you could provide that list, I would like to see that, please. And that's it, sir.
Now, I do want to say that some of the ARP funding we do not qualify for based on the size cities.
Okay. Alderman,
Nothing tonight, sir.
Alderman here.
I just want to say thank you to the staff. I say it every time. You make me look good whenever I have things and questions that need to be answered. I want to thank the staff that helped out with Juneteenth, another beautiful festival that came off, fireworks. Appreciate you. Besides the fact that July 1st is my birthday. Registration period is open at this time until July 1st because we do have a runoff. You have your next mayor, Ward 1 and Ward 2. So that means you can get registered up until July 1st at 5 p.m. And then if you need to update your registration or change your party, that's all being processed. Same day registration is offered July 7th to the 23rd. That's early voting. Please come out. It could be raining, storming, hailing, whatever. Get your vote in early. And just make sure you vote. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Bingle.
I have one thing, so, probably back in 2011 or 2012, the Board of Aldermen voted and did a resolution to make Heritage Park, which was where our elevator's being built. And Heritage Park was going to celebrate all the families that settled North Carolina, including our African-American families, and all-encompassing David French really is the keeper of the history. So of course, now that we're building a elevator there, the site now looks like it's going to move to where the fencing is, that little green space there, so it's half the size of what it's gonna be. They're going to scale it down, but I just need direction to foster. I don't think we need another resolution, just a change of venue, so a change of location, what was already approved, to go over there, because they don't want to get into drawings and all that other stuff if we're not going to agree to that. So I just was curious how the board felt. Is everybody okay with that and agree to the change in location?
Yeah.
Everybody good? Anybody have any issue with that? Okay. So Foster, if we could give you direction, that would be good. I can let Mr. French know, and they're gonna go ahead and design that little area there. Also too, we will be taking the James Davis plaque. James Davis was the first printer and printed the first material in the state of North Carolina, and the plaque was where the DeGraff and Reed bust was that was moved. We're gonna be putting it in the side bed and getting a little storyboard that's gonna tell the story of James Davis and the first printing press in North Carolina. So that's in the works as well. So
Where are those funds coming from?
probably personal private funds,
Gotcha.
not city funds would be spent.
Just
The
had
plaque is
that.
already-
Just had that.
Yeah, I know, that's okay, that's okay, you can ask, you can ask. I'm gonna take them out of my air.
That's what I thought you were gonna say.
I think we're gonna do some private fundraising and get that taken care of.
Perfect.
That's all I have, sir.
Okay. Any other new business at this time? Do we need a?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion,
Well, do we need a closed session?
No, sir.
Okay.
Any other business at this time?
I'd like to make a motion, we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. Is there discussion? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. We are adjourned.